They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But when you're a werewolf with fire running through your veins, cold isn't really an option. My name is Raven Nightshade, and 3 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I was the future Luna of the Crimson Fong Pack, mated to the Alpha Sun, living the perfect shifter fairy tale. Then I walked into that storage room at the pack meeting and found my so-called destined mate with his fangs buried in another she-wolf's neck. Not the kind you'd expect from your future husband. What I discovered that night didn't just shatter my heart, it ignited something darker. Something that would lead me straight into the arms of the most dangerous wolf in our territory, Dante Steele, Alpha of the Silver Moon Pack, and my ex-mate's greatest rival. But this story isn't about finding love. It's about what happens when a broken she-wolf decides to play with fire and discovers she might just be the one holding the match. Chapter 1. The Discovery. I should have known something was wrong when Marcus started avoiding my eyes during the pack gathering. 3 years together, and suddenly he couldn't look at me? But I was too busy playing the perfect future Luna, smiling at the elders and pretending I didn't notice how Scarlett Morrison kept shooting me these weird, pitying looks. The Crimson Fong Pack's monthly assembly was in full swing in our territory's main lodge. Wolves mingled around the massive stone fireplace, the scent of pine and wood smoke mixing with the underlying musk that came with having 50 shifters in one space. I'd just finished discussing the upcoming charity drive with Elder Garrett when I realized I hadn't seen Marcus in over an hour. He went toward the back storage rooms, Scarlett said when I asked, but there was something in her voice that made my wolf restless. Said he needed to check on something for his father. Alpha Rider Blackthorn had been grooming Marcus to take over the pack since we were teenagers. As his mate, I was expected to stand beside him when that day came. But lately, Marcus had been distant, always having private meetings, always busy with pack business that apparently didn't include me. I made my way through the lodge, nodding at pack members as I passed. The back hallway was dimmer, lit only by a few scattered wall sconces. The storage rooms were mostly used for keeping extra supplies and old pack records. What could Marcus possibly need back here? That's when I heard it. A soft moan coming from the room at the end of the hall. My blood went cold. My wolf, Midnight, started pacing anxiously in my mind, her hackles raised. Something's wrong, she growled. I approached the partially open door, my enhanced hearing picking up whispered words that made my stomach drop. She doesn't have to know, Marcus's voice, thick with desire. But what if she finds out? A female voice I recognized with growing horror. Bethany Cross, one of the pack's newest members. A blonde she-wolf who joined us just 6 months ago after her previous pack disbanded. She won't. Raven's too busy playing house to pay attention to what's really going on. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces as I pushed the door open just enough to see inside. Marcus had Bethany pressed against the wall, his hands tangled in her hair, his mouth moving hungrily down her throat. She was practically purring under his touch, her claws digging into his shoulders. 3 years. 3 years of planning our future, of believing in our mate bond, of standing by his side as he prepared to lead our pack. And this was what he really thought of me? That I was just playing house? I must have made a sound, a gasp, maybe a whimper, because Marcus's had snapped up. His eyes, usually a warm brown, were glowing with his wolf's golden light. When he saw me standing there, he didn't look guilty. He didn't look sorry. He looked annoyed. Raven, he said, stepping back from Bethany, but not releasing her entirely. I can explain. But I was already backing away, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Not here. Not in front of them. Don't, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Just don't. I turned and ran, pushing past confused pack members, ignoring the calls of my name. I burst through the lodge's front doors and shifted mid-leap, my clothes shredding as Midnight took control. We ran through the forest, our paws pounding against the earth, branches whipping past us as we fled the scene of our humiliation. We didn't stop until we reached the old oak tree on the border between Crimson Fong and neutral territory. That's where I finally let myself break down, shifting back to human form and collapsing against the massive trunk. The mate bond felt like acid in my chest, The connection I'd cherished, now nothing but a source of pain. How long has this been going on? How many times had Marcus touched her while promising me forever? My phone buzzed with text after text, but I ignored them all. Instead, I sat there in the darkness, letting the rage build. Because beneath the hurt, beneath the betrayal, something cold and calculating was taking shape. Marcus wanted to play games? Fine. But he'd forgotten one crucial thing about me. I wasn't just any she-wolf. I was Raven Nightshade, and my family had connections that stretched far beyond our little pack, including ties to the most powerful alpha in the region, one who had very specific feelings about the Blackthorn family. As the moon rose higher above the trees, casting silver light through the leaves, I made myself a promise. Marcus and Bethany had humiliated me, treated me like I was disposable. Now, they were going to learn exactly what happened when you crossed a nightshade. The game was about to begin, and I intended to win. Chapter 2, The Plan. I spent 3 days wallowing in my apartment, surviving on takeout, and ignoring the dozens of calls from Marcus. My phone buzzed constantly with his messages, each one more pathetic than the last. Raven, please let me explain. It's not what you think. She means nothing to me. You're my mate. You're the only one who matters. Lies. All of it. My wolf could sense deception through our bond, and every word he sent reeked of it. On the 4th morning, I woke up with crystal clarity. The hurt was still there, a constant ache in my chest where our mate bond used to feel warm and secure. But underneath it burned something much more useful. Pure, focused rage. I wasn't going to be the pathetic ex-mate who begged for answers or tried to win him back. Marcus had made his choice, and now I was going to make mine. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. The Silver Moon Pack had been rivals with Crimson Fang for decades, ever since some territorial dispute my parents' generation still whispered about. Their alpha, Dante Steele, had taken control 5 years ago and turned his pack into the most powerful force in the region. More importantly, he and Marcus's father had a history that went beyond simple pack politics. There were rumors of old grudges, business deals gone wrong, and a rivalry that ran deep enough to make pack alliances impossible. I scrolled through news articles and social media posts, piecing together information about the Silver Moon Pack's operations. They owned several businesses in the city, including a high-end security firm and a chain of fitness centers. Legitimate fronts for their pack activities, but also real businesses that required real employees. That's when I found it. A job posting for a marketing coordinator at Steele Securities, posted just 2 days ago. My heart started racing as the plan took shape in my mind. What better way to hurt Marcus than to align myself with his pack's greatest enemy? And what better way to prove I wasn't just some naive she-wolf playing house than to land a job with the most ruthless alpha in the territory? I spent the rest of the day crafting the perfect resume and cover letter, emphasizing my business degree and the marketing work I'd done for Crimson Fang's community outreach programs. I made sure to mention my pack affiliation prominently. After all, hiring the future Luna of your rival pack would be quite the coup for Alpha Steel. The response came faster than I expected. An email from someone named Victor Kane, requesting an interview for the following afternoon at Steele Securities' downtown office. My hands shook as I replied, confirming the appointment. This was really happening. That evening, I finally answered one of Marcus's calls. Raven. Thank the moon goddess. His relief was palpable through the phone. I've been going crazy. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. Of course there is. What you saw. What I saw was my mate with another she-wolf scent all over him. I cut him off. What I heard was you calling our relationship playing house. Silence stretched between us. Finally, Marcus sighed. It was a mistake, Raven. A moment of weakness. Bethany means nothing to me. But I clearly mean nothing to you either. That's not true. You're my mate. You're my future Luna. I corrected. I was your future Luna. Now, I'm just someone you used to know. Don't say that. His voice cracked, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Give me a chance to make this right. One chance. I closed my eyes, steeling myself for what came next. I'm done, Marcus. We're done. The mate bond is severed as far as I'm concerned. You can't just decide that. Watch me. I hung up and immediately blocked his number. The mate bond protested, sending waves of pain through my chest, but I gritted my teeth and endured it. Some things were more important than comfort. The next afternoon, I stood outside the gleaming glass tower that housed Steel Securities, wearing my best professional outfit and carrying a portfolio that showcased my most impressive work. The lobby was all modern lines and expensive materials, with the Silver Moon Pack's subtle wolf emblem worked into the design. The elevator carried me to the 15th floor, where a receptionist with kind eyes and graying hair smiled at me warmly. "You must be Raven Nightshade," she said. "I'm Patricia. Mr. Kane is ready for you." Victor Kane turned out to be a tall, lean man with salt and pepper hair and the bearing of a former military officer. His office overlooked the city, and I could sense the subtle power radiating from him. A high-ranking pack member, definitely. "Ms. Nightshade," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "I have to admit, your application caught our attention. It's not every day someone from Crimson Fang applies for a position here." "I believe in going where the opportunities are," I replied smoothly. "Pack politics shouldn't limit professional growth." He smiled, clearly impressed by my directness. We talked for 20 minutes about my experience, my ideas for improving their marketing approach, and my thoughts on expanding their client base. I could tell I was winning him over. "There's just one more person you need to meet," he said finally. "Someone who likes to personally approve all our key hires." My heart stuttered. Of course. Victor led me down a hallway lined with windows, each step bringing me closer to what I knew would be a point of no return. We stopped at a set of double doors marked with a simple nameplate, D. Steele. "Good luck," Victor murmured, knocking twice before pushing the doors open. The office beyond was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. Behind an imposing desk sat the most dangerous-looking man I'd ever seen. Dante Steele was everything the rumors said and more. Tall, broad-shouldered, with black hair and piercing silver eyes that seemed to see straight through me. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge, and my wolf immediately sat up and took notice, recognizing a true alpha. "Ms. Nightshade," he said, his voice a low rumble that sent shivers down my spine. "Please have a seat." I forced myself to walk calmly to the chair across from his desk, even though every instinct was screaming at me to either submit or run. This close, I could catch his scent, pine, leather, and something wild that made my pulse quicken. "Victor tells me you're interested in joining our team," Dante continued, leaning back in his chair and studying me with those unsettling silver eyes. "I have to wonder what would make Marcus Blackthorn's mate want to work for his pack's greatest enemy." The way he said it, with amusement rather than suspicion, told me he already knew exactly why I was here. "Ex-mate," I corrected, meeting his gaze steadily. "And maybe I'm tired of being underestimated." Something shifted in his expression, a spark of what might have been approval. Underestimated how? I took a deep breath, knowing this was my moment to either convince him or lose everything. Marcus treated me like a pretty accessory, something to look good beside him when he becomes alpha. He never valued my intelligence, my ambitions, or my potential. I'm here because I want to work for someone who recognizes that a she-wolf can be more than just a future Luna. Dante was quiet for a long moment, those silver eyes never leaving my face. I could practically hear the gears turning in his mind as he weighed my words, my motives, my usefulness to his pack. Finally, he smiled, a slow, predatory expression that should have terrified me, but instead sent heat racing through my veins. "Welcome to Silver Moon Pack, Raven Nightshade," he said. "I think you're going to fit in perfectly here." Chapter 3. First Day. My first day at Steel Securities started at 8 sharp, just like Dante had instructed. I'd spent the weekend shopping for a professional wardrobe that would help me fit in with the Silver Moon Pack's sleek, corporate image. As I walked through the lobby in my charcoal gray blazer and fitted skirt, I felt like I was wearing armor. Patricia greeted me with the same warm smile from my interview. Ready for your first day, dear? Mr. Kane is waiting to show you around. The tour was comprehensive: marketing department, tech center, training facilities that I suspected were used for more than just human self-defense classes. The building hummed with the subtle energy of wolves trying to blend into the human world while maintaining their pack structure. Your office is on the 14th floor, Victor explained as we rode the elevator up. Close enough to the executive level for easy collaboration, but with enough space for your team to work independently. My office was smaller than Dante's, but still impressive, with a view of the financial district and modern furniture that screamed expensive. A nameplate on the door read Raven Nightshade, Marketing Director, a title that sounded far more important than anything I'd held at Crimson Fawn. Mr. Steele likes to work closely with his department heads, Victor continued, setting a thick folder on my desk. These are our current campaigns and client portfolios. He'll want a full review and your recommendations by the end of the week. I spent the morning diving into their marketing materials, and I had to admit I was impressed. Silver Moon's approach was sophisticated, targeting high-end clients who value discretion and results. Their security services catered to celebrities, politicians, and business leaders, people who could afford the best and didn't ask too many questions about their bodyguards' unusual physical capabilities. Around noon, my desk phone rang. Ms. Nightshade, this is Patricia. Mr. Steele would like to see you in his office. My stomach fluttered as I made my way to the executive floor. I knocked on those intimidating double doors and heard his voice call for me to enter. Dante was standing by his windows, hands clasped behind his back as he looked out at the city. He'd removed his suit jacket, and I couldn't help but notice how his dress shirt stretched across his broad shoulders. How's your first day going? He asked without turning around. Very well, thank you. Your team has been incredibly welcoming. He turned then, those silver eyes studying my face. And what do you think of our operations so far? I chose my words carefully. It's more sophisticated than I expected. You've built something impressive here. But the question caught me off guard. I'm sorry? I can hear the but in your voice. What would you change? I hesitated, then decided honesty was the best approach. Your social media presence could be stronger. You're missing opportunities to showcase your successes, discreetly of course. And your client retention strategies could use some work. Once you complete a contract, you lose touch with clients until they need you again. Dante moved closer, perching on the edge of his desk. Go on. Ongoing relationships mean repeat business and referrals. A quarterly newsletter, exclusive events, maybe a client appreciation program. Keep Silver Moon in their minds, so when security issues arise, we're the first call they make. He was quiet for a moment, and I worried I'd overstepped. Then he smiled, not the predatory grin from my interview, but something warmer and more genuine. Exactly what I was hoping to hear, he said. I want you to implement those changes. Full authority to redesign our client relationship strategy. My heart raced at the opportunity. Thank you. I won't let you down. I know you won't. He stood, moving back toward his desk. There's a pack gathering this Friday night. I'd like you there. A pack gathering? Nothing formal. We get together once a month, let our wolves run, and strengthen pack bonds. Consider it a team-building exercise. His eyes glinted with amusement. Unless you're not ready to run with Silver Moon wolves? The challenge in his voice made my wolf stir restlessly. I can handle myself. I'm sure you can. The gathering starts at sunset. Patricia will give you the location. I nodded and headed for the door, but his voice stopped me. Raven. I turned back, surprised by the use of my first name. What you said about being underestimated, that's not going to happen here. I see exactly what you're capable of. The intensity in his voice sent heat rushing through me. I managed to nod and escape his office before I did something embarrassing like blush or stammer. The rest of the week flew by in a blur of meetings, strategy sessions, and getting to know my new colleagues. The Silver Moon Wolves were professional and competent, but there was an underlying edge to them that Crimson Fawn lacked. These wolves were predators first, business people second. Friday evening found me driving to the coordinates Patricia had given me, my heart pounding with nervous energy. The location was deep in the wilderness preserve outside the city, accessible only by a winding dirt road that my GPS kept losing signal on. I parked in a clearing where a dozen other vehicles were already gathered. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear voices and smell the smoke of a bonfire. A path through the trees led to a large meadow where the Silver Moon pack had gathered. About 30 wolves in human form were scattered around a roaring fire, some in conversation, others already beginning to shed their clothes in preparation for the shift. Raven. Victor waved me over to where he stood with a group of pack members. Everyone, this is our new marketing director. The introductions were friendly enough, but I could sense the subtle evaluation happening. I was an outsider, a wolf from a rival pack, and they were deciding whether to accept me or merely tolerate me. First Silver Moon run? Asked a woman named Diana, who I recognized from the IT department. First pack run that isn't Crimson Fong, I admitted. You'll find we do things differently here, said another wolf, Marcus's beta. No, I reminded myself, this wasn't Marcus's beta. This was Silver Moon's beta, a man named Cole with kind eyes and an easy smile. Dante likes to let our wolves really run. No holding back. As if summoned by his name, Dante appeared at my elbow. He'd changed from his business attire into jeans and a black t-shirt that clung to his muscular frame. Ready to see what Silver Moon is really about? He asked. Before I could answer, the sound of bones cracking filled the air. Around the meadow, pack members were shifting, their human forms melting away into powerful wolf shapes. The sight was both beautiful and intimidating. These weren't ordinary wolves. They were larger, stronger, with an intelligence that gleamed in their eyes. Shall we? Dante asked, already pulling his shirt over his head. I turned away, giving him privacy, while I found my own space to shift. The familiar sensation of my bones reshaping and muscles reforming was both painful and exhilarating. When I opened my eyes, I was looking at the world through midnight senses. Dante's wolf was magnificent, a massive black creature with those same piercing silver eyes. He was easily the largest wolf in the pack, radiating an alpha's dominance that made every other wolf defer to him instinctively. He padded over to me, his wolf's gaze assessing. Midnight held her ground, refusing to show submission despite recognizing his superior strength. After a tense moment, Dante's wolf huffed what might have been approval and trotted toward the tree line. The run that followed was unlike anything I'd experienced with Crimson Fong. These wolves moved like a hunting pack, swift and coordinated, covering miles of territory with effortless grace. I found myself keeping pace with Dante, matching his rhythm as we raced through moonlit forests and across rocky streams. When we finally returned to the meadow hours later, I was exhilarated and exhausted. The pack shifted back to human form, everyone chatting and laughing as they dressed and shared food around the fire. Not bad for a Crimson Fong wolf, Cole commented as I joined the group around the fire. Former Crimson Fong, Dante corrected, handing me a bottle of water. His fingers brushed mine, sending sparks up my arm. Raven runs with Silver Moon now. The simple declaration sent a thrill through me. In the span of 1 week, I'd gone from Marcus's ignored mate to a valued member of the most powerful pack in the region. As the fire burned lower and pack members began to head home, Dante walked me to my car. "Thank you for tonight," I said. "It was incredible." "You fit in well," he replied. "The pack likes you." "And what about you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Dante stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I think you're going to be very good for Silver Moon, Raven Nightshade." The way he said my name, low and rough, made my wolf purr with satisfaction. This was what I'd wanted, to be seen, valued, desired by someone who appreciated my strength. But as I drove home that night, windows down to let the cool air clear my head, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was playing with forces beyond my control. Dante's steel was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with pack politics and everything to do with the way he made me feel. Marcus had never looked at me the way Dante did, like I was something rare and precious that he wanted to possess. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it thrilled me to my core. Chapter 4. Confrontation. I was deep in reviewing client portfolios when my office door burst open without a knock. I looked up, expecting to see Victor or maybe one of my marketing team members, but instead found myself face-to-face with Marcus. He looked terrible. His usually perfectly styled hair was disheveled, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his clothes were wrinkled like he'd slept in them. The scent of alcohol and desperation clung to him, making my wolf recoil in disgust. "Raven," he said, his voice rough. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair, forcing myself to appear calm despite my racing heart. "How did you get in here? This building has security." I told them I was your mate. His jaw clenched. "Technically, I still am." "Not anymore." I stood, putting my desk between us. "Our bond is severed, Marcus. You made that choice when you decided Bethany was more interesting than your destined mate. It was a mistake." He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. "One stupid mistake that meant nothing. You can't throw away 3 years over a moment of weakness." "I can, and I did." I kept my voice steady, professional. "Now, please leave. This is my workplace." "Your workplace?" He laughed bitterly. "You mean Dante Steele's territory. Do you have any idea what you've done? Working for our pack's enemy. Silver Moon isn't my enemy. And they're not yours either unless you make them one." Marcus's face darkened. "He's using you, Raven. Whatever game he's playing, you're just a pawn. A way to get back at my father at our pack." His words hit closer to home than I wanted to admit, stirring doubts I'd been trying to suppress. But I wasn't about to let him see that. "Maybe I'm using him too," I replied coolly. "Maybe I wanted to see what it felt like to work for an alpha who actually values intelligence over blind loyalty." "You think Steele values you?" Marcus moved around the desk, backing me toward the window. "You're deluding yourself. He's a predator, Raven. He takes what he wants and discards the rest." "Like you did to me?" The question stopped him cold. For a moment, pain flashed across his features, but it quickly hardened into anger. "I never discarded you. I made a mistake, but I never stopped loving you." "Love." I laughed harshly. "You call cheating love? You call dismissing our entire relationship as playing house love?" I was angry, frustrated. Being groomed to be alpha is pressure you can't understand. Bethany was just an escape, a way to blow off steam. And I was what? Your burden? Before he could answer, my office door opened again. This time, Dante stepped through, his silver eyes immediately taking in the scene, Marcus crowding me against the window, my defensive posture, the tension crackling in the air. "Is there a problem here?" Dante's voice was deceptively calm, but I could sense the deadly threat underneath. Marcus straightened, his wolf recognizing the dominance of a true alpha even as his human side bristled with defiance. "This is between me and my mate." "Ex-mate," I corrected firmly. "And no, we're done talking." Dante stepped fully into the room, his presence immediately shifting the dynamics. Marcus was tall and strong, but next to Dante, he looked almost boyish. The Silver Moon Alpha radiated power that made the air itself feel heavy. "Ms. Nightshade is a valued member of my pack," Dante said quietly. "If she says the conversation is over, then it's over." "Your pack." Marcus's voice rose. "She's Crimson Fong. Her family has served my pack for generations." "Served," Dante repeated, the word dripping with disdain. "That's your problem, isn't it? You think loyalty is something you're owed instead of something you earn." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "You don't know anything about our relationship." "I know enough." Dante moved closer, and I could see Marcus fighting every instinct to step back. "I know you had something precious and threw it away. I know you're here because you realized too late what you lost." "She's mine," Marcus growled, his wolf beginning to surface. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Dante's eyes flashed silver, and suddenly I could feel his alpha power pressing against my skin like a physical force. "She belongs to herself," Dante said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "And she's chosen where she wants to be. You need to respect that choice." For a moment, I thought Marcus might actually challenge him. His body was coiled with tension, his wolf pushing at the surface. But even his pride couldn't overcome the primal recognition of a superior predator. "This isn't over," Marcus said finally, directing his words at me rather than Dante. "You think you know him, but you don't. Ask him about the Riverside incident. Ask him what really happened to Luna, who tried to leave his pack." With that cryptic threat, he pushed past Dante and stormed out of my office. I stood there shaking, adrenaline coursing through my system as I tried to process what had just happened. "Are you all right?" Dante asked, his voice gentler now that Marcus was gone. I nodded, though I wasn't entirely sure it was true. "Thank you for stepping in." He wouldn't listen to me. "He's hurting," Dante said, surprising me with what sounded like sympathy. "Hurt wolves do stupid things." "You almost sound like you feel sorry for him." Dante moved to my window, looking out at the city below. "I feel sorry for any wolf who loses something irreplaceable through their own stupidity. But that doesn't mean I'll let him harass you." I wanted to ask about Marcus's parting shot, about this Riverside incident and Luna, who tried to leave. But something in Dante's posture warned me away from the subject. "I should get back to work," I said instead. He turned back to me, those piercing silver eyes studying my face. "Are you sure you're all right? You look shaken." "I'm fine. Just angry that he thinks he can still control my life." "He can't," Dante said firmly. "Not anymore. You're under Silver Moon protection now." The way he said it, with such certainty, such possessiveness, sent a shiver through me. It should have been reassuring, but instead, it raised new questions about what exactly I'd gotten myself into. After Dante left, I tried to focus on my work, but Marcus's words kept echoing in my mind. Was I just a pawn in some larger game? Had Dante hired me because of my skills, or because of my connection to his rivals? The doubts gnawed at me through the rest of the afternoon. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, I'd convinced myself that I needed answers. I gathered my courage and headed up to the executive floor. Patricia had already left for the day, so I knocked directly on Dante's office door. "Come in." He was working at his computer, tie loosened and sleeves rolled up. The sight of his forearms, corded with muscle and marked with faint scars, made my mouth go dry. "I'm sorry to bother you," I began, "but I wanted to ask you something." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Of course. What's on your mind?" I sat down, trying to organize my thoughts. "When you hired me, was it because of my qualifications, or because I'm Marcus's ex-mate?" Dante leaned back in his chair, considering the question. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me. I need to know if I'm here because I'm good at my job, or because I'm useful as a weapon against Crimson Fong." "You think those things are mutually exclusive?" His non-answer frustrated me. "I'm serious, Dante. I need to know what this is." He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face with those intense silver eyes. Finally, he spoke. "When Victor first showed me your application, yes, I was intrigued by the idea of hiring someone from Marcus's inner circle. But after meeting you, after seeing your work this week, I can honestly say that your value to this pack has nothing to do with your ex-mate." "Then why won't you give me a straight answer?" "Because the straight answer is complicated." He stood, moving around the desk to lean against it, close enough that I could smell his scent. Pine and leather, and something uniquely him. "Yes, I hired you partially to irritate the Blackthorns. But I kept you because you're brilliant at what you do. The question is, does knowing that change how you feel about being here?" I considered his words, weighing them against my own motivations. "I came here for revenge too," I admitted. "I wanted to hurt Marcus the way he hurt me. And now I'm not sure what I want anymore." Dante reached out, his fingers brushing along my jaw in a touch so gentle it took my breath away. "Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's time to stop living for revenge and start living for yourself." His touch, his words, the intensity in his eyes, it all combined to create a moment of perfect clarity. I wasn't just attracted to Dante because he was powerful or because he represented everything Marcus wasn't. I was falling for him because of who he was, a leader who valued strength, who saw potential where others saw only wounds, who made me feel like I could be more than I'd ever imagined. But as his thumb traced across my cheekbone, Marcus's warning echoed in my mind. Ask him about the Riverside incident. Some secrets I realized would have to wait for another day. Chapter 5. The Charity Gala. 2 weeks passed in a blur of successful campaigns and late-night strategy sessions. My marketing initiatives were already showing results. Client retention was up 15%, and we'd landed 3 new corporate contracts. More importantly, I was finding my place within the Silver Moon pack hierarchy. The wolves who had been cautious around me during my first pack run now included me in their conversations, sought my opinions, and defended my ideas in meetings. It felt good to be valued for my mind rather than just my bloodline. But the growing tension between Crimson Fong and Silver Moon was impossible to ignore. There had been incidents, territory disputes, business contracts mysteriously cancelled, whispered accusations in the supernatural community. The packs were circling each other like wolves preparing for a fight. I was reviewing quarterly reports when Patricia knocked on my office door. "Mr. Steele would like to see you," she said with her usual warm smile. "He has a proposal." I found Dante in his office, dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean waist. He was standing by his windows again, but this time he turned when I entered. "There's an event this Saturday night," he said without preamble. "The annual Supernatural Business Alliance Charity Gala. Every major pack leader in the region will be there, along with vampire covens, witch circles, and various other supernatural entrepreneurs." Sounds important. It is. It's also the perfect opportunity to debut Silver Moon's new marketing strategy and our new marketing director. His silver eyes fixed on mine. "I'd like you to attend as my date." My heart stuttered. "Your date?" "The event requires formal attire and significant networking. You'll be representing Silver Moon at the highest level of supernatural society." He moved closer, his presence filling my senses. "Unless you're not comfortable with that level of responsibility?" The challenge in his voice made my wolf stir restlessly. "I can handle whatever you need me to handle." "I was hoping you'd say that." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek black envelope. "The details are inside. Patricia will arrange for appropriate attire." I took the invitation, our fingers brushing as he handed it to me. The contact sent familiar sparks up my arm, and I saw his eyes darken in response. "Dante," I began, then stopped, unsure how to voice the questions swirling in my mind. "What is it?" "This gala, will Marcus be there?" "The Blackthorn pack." His expression hardened slightly. "Alpha Rider will likely attend. Whether he brings his son is his choice to make." The thought of facing Marcus in such a public setting made my stomach churn, but I forced myself to nod. "I'll be ready." Saturday evening arrived faster than I'd expected. Patricia had outdone herself with the dress, a midnight blue gown that hugged my curves and flowed like water with every step. The color brought out the silver flecks in my gray eyes and complemented my dark hair, which I'd swept up in an elegant chignon. Dante picked me up at 7 in a sleek black Tesla that whispered through the city streets. He looked devastating in his tuxedo, the formal wear emphasizing his natural authority and predatory grace. "You look stunning," he said as he helped me into the passenger seat, his hand lingering on mine. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." The gala was being held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, one of the city's most exclusive venues. As we pulled up to the valet stand, I could see other supernatural beings arriving. Vampires in their eternal elegance, witches dripping with subtle power, and werewolves from packs across the region. "Remember," Dante said as we walked toward the entrance, his hand warm on the small of my back, "tonight you're not just Raven Nightshade. You're Silver Moon's marketing director, my partner in business, and..." He paused, looking down at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Whatever else develops between us." The ballroom was magnificent, crystal chandeliers, flowing silk drapes, and an orchestra playing soft classical music. Servers moved through the crowd offering champagne and delicate hors d'oeuvres while supernatural society's elite mingled and made deals. I recognized several faces from business magazines and supernatural news outlets. There was Isabella Corvelli, the vampire CEO of Corvelli Industries. Marcus Shadowheart, Alpha of the Northern Ridge Pack. And there, near the bar, Alpha Rider Blackthorn himself, looking distinguished in his formal wear. Dante Steele. A smooth voice interrupted my observations. I turned to see a striking woman with platinum blonde hair and emerald green eyes approaching us. She wore a silver gown that seemed to shimmer with its own light, and power radiated from her like perfume. Celeste, Dante replied, his tone cordial but cautious. You look radiant as always. And you've brought a new companion. Celeste's gaze fixed on me with obvious assessment. How interesting. Celeste Morgana, meet Raven Nightshade, Silver Moon's marketing director. Raven, Celeste leads the Moonstone Coven. The witch extended a perfectly manicured hand. Pleasure to meet you, dear. Though I have to say, you look familiar. Haven't I seen you at Crimson Fong events? My stomach tightened, but I kept my smile steady. I used to be affiliated with them, yes. Now I work exclusively with Silver Moon. How evolutionary. Celeste's smile was sharp as a blade. I do hope the transition hasn't been too difficult. Pack loyalty can be such a complicated thing. Raven has adapted beautifully, Dante said, his arm sliding around my waist in a gesture that was both protective and possessive. She's proven invaluable to our organization. I'm sure she has. Celeste's eyes glittered with amusement. Well, I should let you two continue networking. The night is young, and there are so many interesting conversations to be had. As she glided away, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. She seems intense, I murmured. Celeste thrives on chaos and drama. Don't let her get under your skin. We spent the next hour working the room, and I was impressed by how seamlessly we functioned as a team. Dante would introduce me to potential clients, and I would smoothly transition into discussions about Silver Moon services. Several vampires expressed interest in our discreet protection services, and a powerful witch coven wanted to discuss corporate security for their upcoming ritual gatherings. You're a natural at this, Dante murmured in my ear during a brief lull between conversations. His breath against my skin sent shivers down my spine. I have a good teacher. Do you? His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. And what else would you like me to teach you? The loaded question hung between us, full of promise and possibility. Before I could answer, a familiar voice cut through the moment like a blade. Well, well, isn't this cozy? I turned to find Marcus standing behind us, resplendent in his own tuxedo but with eyes that burned with barely contained fury. He wasn't alone. Bethany was on his arm, wearing a red dress that left little to the imagination and a smug smile that made my wolf snarl. Marcus, I said coolly. Bethany, I didn't expect to see you here. Father thought it would be good for us to make an appearance as the future Alpha and Luna of Crimson Fong, Marcus replied, his gaze fixed on our joined hands. Show a united front in these uncertain times. Bethany pressed closer to Marcus's side, her eyes bright with malicious glee. Raven, you look lovely. That dress is so simple. I admire women who aren't afraid to dress down for important events. The barb hit its mark, but before I could respond, Dante stepped forward. Ms. Cross, isn't it? I don't believe we've been formally introduced. Dante Steele, Alpha of Silver Moon Pack. Bethany's confidence wavered under Dante's intense stare. Oh, yes. Bethany Cross. Soon to be Bethany Blackthorn. Congratulations. Dante's smile was all teeth. I hope you're prepared for the responsibilities that come with being a Luna. It's not a position for the weak or uncommitted. The subtle insult hung in the air like smoke. Marcus's jaw clenched, but he couldn't challenge an alpha of Dante's stature without causing a scene. Raven knows all about Luna's responsibilities, Marcus said instead, his voice tight. She was bred for the position. Shame she decided to abandon her duties for other pursuits. I didn't abandon anything, I replied, my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest. I simply chose to invest my talents where they're appreciated. Appreciated? Marcus laughed bitterly. Is that what we're calling it? The tension was becoming palpable, drawing curious glances from nearby guests. I could see vampire heads turning our way, witch covens pausing their conversations to watch the drama unfold. Perhaps we should continue this conversation elsewhere, Dante suggested, but his tone made it clear it wasn't really a suggestion. No need, Marcus said, backing down but not backing away. We were just leaving. Enjoy your evening together. As they walked away, Bethany glanced back once with a look that promised trouble. I watched them go, my hands shaking with suppressed emotion. Are you all right? Dante asked quietly. I'm fine. Just angry that they think they can still get to me. They can't, he said firmly. Not anymore. But even as he said it, I caught sight of Marcus near the ballroom's exit, his phone pressed to his ear and his expression dark with purpose. Whatever he was planning, I had this sinking feeling this public encounter was just the beginning. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of networking and forced smiles, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. As Dante and I slowly danced to the orchestra's final song, I allowed myself to get lost in the moment, his strong arms around me, his sense surrounding me, the steady beat of his heart against my cheek. Thank you for tonight, I whispered. For defending me, for including me in this. You belong here, Raven. With Silver Moon. With me. The certainty in his voice made my heart race. As we swayed together under the ballroom's glittering lights, I realized I was falling deeper than I'd ever intended. This had started as revenge, but it was becoming something real, something precious. Which made Marcus's parting look all the more terrifying. I knew my ex-mate well enough to recognize that expression. It was the look of a wolf who decided that if he couldn't have what he wanted, he'd make sure no one else could either. Chapter 6: Revelations and Photographs. Monday morning hit me like a freight train. I'd barely settled at my desk with my coffee when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Text after text, missed calls, and voicemail alerts that made my stomach drop with dread. The first message I opened was from my college roommate Sarah. Oh my God, Raven. Are you okay? Have you seen the photos? Photos. My hands trembled as I opened my laptop and pulled up the local supernatural news website, Moonlight Chronicles. The headline made my blood freeze. Silver Moon Alpha's scandalous new romance. Crimson Fawn's former future Luna spotted in intimate embrace. Below, it were a series of high-resolution photographs. Me and Dante dancing at the gala. His hand on my face in his office. Us walking together after the pack run, standing closer than colleagues should. The final photo showed us on his apartment balcony last week when he'd invited me over for dinner, a moment I thought was private, captured through what must have been a telephoto lens. The article was brutal. Sources close to Crimson Fawn Pack confirmed that Raven Nightshade, 24, was until recently engaged to future Alpha Marcus Blackthorn. Now she appears to have traded up to his pack's greatest rival, Silver Moon Alpha Dante Steele, 35. The age gap and timing raised questions about the true nature of their relationship. My office door burst open, and Marcus stormed in, his face twisted with rage and something that looked almost like triumph. Enjoying your 15 minutes of fame? He snarled, throwing a printed copy of the article on my desk. Get out, I said quietly, my voice shaking with fury. Now. Oh, I don't think so. Not when you've dragged our pack's name through the mud. He leaned over my desk, his scent carrying the metallic tang of barely controlled violence. Did you really think you could humiliate me publicly and get away with it? I didn't do anything to you. You destroyed our relationship all by yourself. And now you're what, Steele's little plaything? His midlife crisis. Marcus's laugh was cruel. You think he actually cares about you? He's using you to get back at my father and you're too stupid to see it. Before I could respond, my door opened again. This time it was Dante, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. His silver eyes took in the scene, Marcus looming over my desk, me pressed back in my chair, the articles spread between us. Problem here? Dante's voice was deceptively calm, but I could see the predator lurking just beneath the surface. Marcus straightened, but didn't back down. Just having a conversation with my ex-fiancée about her questionable life choices. I see. And does this conversation require you to invade her workspace and intimidate her? I'm not intimidating anyone, just pointing out some hard truths. Dante stepped fully into the room, and I watched Marcus's bravado falter slightly. Even I could feel the alpha power radiating from Dante, making my wolf want to submit despite myself. Here's a hard truth for you, Dante said quietly. Raven is under my protection. That means anyone who threatens her answers to me personally. Are we clear? For a moment, I thought Marcus might actually challenge him. His fists clenched, his jaw worked, and I could practically see his wolf pushing at the surface. But self-preservation won out over pride. Crystal, Marcus spit out. He turned to me, his eyes burning with hatred. This isn't over, Raven. Not by a long shot. After he left, Dante immediately came to my side. Are you hurt? I shook my head, though my hands were still trembling. Just angry and embarrassed. I gestured at the article. Half the supernatural community probably thinks I'm some kind of gold digger now. Let them think about what they want. We know the truth. But do we? The question burned in my throat, but I couldn't bring myself to voice it. Marcus's accusations echoed in my mind, mixing with my own doubts about Dante's motivations. I should get back to work, I said instead. Dante studied my face for a long moment. Take the day off. Let this blow over. No. Running away will just make it look like I have something to be ashamed of. Something flickered in his eyes. Approval. Maybe even pride. All right. But if anyone gives you trouble, I'll handle it. The rest of the day was a nightmare of whispered conversations and pitying looks. Some of my Silver Moon colleagues were supportive, but I could tell others were questioning my place in the pack. The humans in the building seemed oblivious, but every supernatural could smell the tension rolling off me in waves. By 5 o'clock, I was emotionally drained and ready to go home. I was packing up my things when my phone rang. An unknown number. Hello. Ms. Nightshade? This is Derek Chun from Moonlight Chronicles. I was hoping to get a comment on the photos that ran today. My blood pressure spiked. I have no comment. Sources are saying this relationship began while you were still engaged to Marcus Blackthorne. Can you confirm or deny? I hung up and immediately blocked the number. But within minutes, my phone was ringing again. Different reporter, same invasive questions. I turned off my phone and headed for the elevator. But as the doors opened, I found myself face-to-face with Bethany Cross. She was holding her own copy of the article, and her smile was pure venom. Raven. What a surprise. I was just in the building visiting a friend. Her eyes glittered with malice. I saw the news. How exciting for you, Bethany. I stepped into the elevator, hoping she wouldn't follow. She did, of course. You know, I have to admire your strategy, she continued as the doors closed. When Marcus and I started seeing each other, I never imagined you'd bounce back so aggressively. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, please. Sleeping with his pack's greatest enemy? That's not moving on. That's warfare. The elevator seemed to be moving impossibly slowly. I focused on the numbers counting down, refusing to engage. Of course, everyone's wondering how long it will last, Bethany went on. I mean, Dante Steele doesn't exactly have a reputation for long-term relationships. There was that Luna from the Riverside pack a few years ago. What was her name? Oh, right. No one talks about her anymore. My blood chilled. The Riverside incident. Marcus's warning. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying that wolves like Steele take what they want and discard the rest. Just like Marcus did with you, I suppose. Her smile was razor-sharp. History has a way of repeating itself. The elevator doors finally opened on the ground floor, and I bolted out without another word. But Bethany's poison had found its mark, joining the chorus of doubts already plaguing my mind. I made it home to my apartment and deadbolted the door behind me, finally allowing myself to fall apart. The day's events crashed over me like a tsunami. The humiliating photos, Marcus's cruel words, the reporters, Bethany's veiled threats. But underneath it all was a deeper fear. What if they were all right? What if I was just a pawn in Dante's game, a way to strike back at his enemies? What if I'd traded one user for another? My phone buzzed with a text from Dante. Are you all right? You left without saying goodbye. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Just tired. Going to bed early. His reply came instantly. We should talk. I'm coming over. No. I typed back quickly. I need some space to think. A long pause then. All right. But Raven, don't let their poison get to you. What we have is real. I turned off my phone without responding and collapsed onto my couch. The article was still open on my laptop, those damning photos staring back at me. In them, I looked happy, radiant even. But now all I could see was a naive girl being manipulated by forces beyond her understanding. The knock on my door came an hour later. I ignored it, but the knocking persisted. Raven, it's me. Open up. My heart sank. Marcus. Go away. I called through the door. I know you're upset about today. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You leaked those photos. A long silence. Then, yeah, I did. His admission hit me like a physical blow. I'd suspected, but hearing him confirm it made everything worse. How could you? I whispered. Because I love you, he said through the door, his voice broken. Because I can't stand watching him use you the way he used. The way he used who? Another silence. Then, so quietly I almost couldn't hear. Her name was Miranda. She was Luna of the Riverside Pack. Beautiful, smart, completely devoted to her mate. Until she met Dante at a peace summit. My stomach dropped, but I found myself moving closer to the door. He seduced her, Marcus continued. Convinced her that her mate didn't appreciate her, that she deserved better. She left everything for him, her pack, her family, her destined mate. And when she was no longer useful to his political games, he discarded her. You're lying. She killed herself, Raven. Threw herself off Riverside Bridge because she couldn't live with what she'd become, what she'd lost. The words hit me like bullets, each one finding its mark. I slumped against the door, my legs suddenly unable to support me. I won't let him do that to you, Marcus said softly. I won't let him destroy you the way he destroyed her. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that Dante wasn't like that what we had was different. But the doubts were already there, fertilized by a day of humiliation and watered by my own insecurities. Please, Raven, just think about what I've told you. Ask yourself why a powerful alpha would really be interested in someone like you. And then ask yourself if you're willing to bet your life on the answer. His footsteps faded down the hallway, leaving me alone with my fears and the terrible possibility that everything I thought I knew about Dante Steele was a lie. Chapter 7. Confronting the Truth. I didn't sleep that night. Marcus's words echoed in my mind like a curse, each repetition carving deeper wounds into my already fragile confidence. Miranda. Riverside Bridge. The pattern was too specific, too detailed to be a complete fabrication. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I needed answers, and I was going to get them directly from the source. I arrived at Steele Securities before anyone else, using my keycard to access the building in the gray pre-dawn light. The executive floor was eerily quiet, but I knew Dante would be there. He always arrived early, claiming the solitude helped him think. I found him in his office, standing at his windows with a cup of coffee in hand. He was dressed casually in dark jeans and a black sweater, and for a moment, I was struck by how normal he looked. Not like a predator or a manipulator, just a man watching the sunrise over his city. You're here early, he said without turning around. Couldn't sleep? We need to talk. Something in my tone made him turn. His silver eyes took in my appearance. The same clothes from yesterday, dark circles under my eyes, the tension radiating from every line of my body. About yesterday's article? Raven, I told you not to let their poison. Tell me about Miranda. The words fell between us like stones into still water. I watched his face carefully, looking for any sign of guilt or deception. What I saw instead was surprise, followed quickly by something that looked like pain. Where did you hear that name? Marcus. He told me about the Riverside incident. About what you did to her. Dante set down his coffee cup with deliberate care, then moved to his desk and sat on its edge. What exactly did he tell you? That she was Luna who left her pack for you. That you seduced her, used her, and when you were done, you discarded her. That she killed herself because of what you did to her. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Dante was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. And you believe him? I don't know what to believe anymore. My voice cracked despite my efforts to stay strong. Yesterday those photos, today this. Everyone keeps telling me you're using me, that I'm just another Miranda. So tell me the truth, Dante. All of it. He stood and walked to his windows again, his hands clasped behind his back. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, distant. Miranda Riverside was the Luna of the Riverside pack, yes. She was beautiful, intelligent, and trapped in a mateship that was slowly killing her spirit. My stomach clenched, but I forced myself to listen. Her mate, Alpha Connor Riverside, was traditional in his views. He believed Lunas should be seen and not heard, that their role was to produce heirs and look pretty at pack functions. Miranda had a master's degree in environmental science and wanted to implement conservation programs for supernatural territories. Connor forbade it. So you seduced her? I met her at a territorial summit 3 years ago. She was miserable, obviously so, and we talked. That's all. Just talked. He turned to face me. She came to me, Raven. Sought me out because she'd heard Silver Moon had female wolves in leadership positions. She wanted to know how to convince her mate to let her contribute meaningfully to her pack. And then Connor found out about our conversations and accused her of having an affair. He rejected her publicly, cast her out of the pack without a trial or explanation. She came to the Silver Moon seeking sanctuary. The story was different from Marcus's version, but it still painted a picture that made my chest tight with anxiety. Did you sleep with her? Dante's jaw clenched. She was vulnerable, alone, devastated by her mate's rejection. Taking advantage of that would have made me a monster. That's not an answer. No, he said firmly. I never touched her romantically. I gave her a place to stay, a job, a chance to rebuild her life. But she couldn't get past the trauma of losing her mate and her pack. She spiraled into depression despite therapy, despite medication, despite everyone's efforts to help her. And the bridge. His expression darkened with what looked like old pain. She jumped from Riverside Bridge 6 months after coming to us. Left a note saying she couldn't live with the shame, couldn't bear being packless and mateless. It had nothing to do with me and everything to do with Connor's cruelty and her own mental illness. The raw emotion in his voice was impossible to fake. But doubt is a poison that spreads through every certainty, and I found myself still questioning. How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? Something flickered across his face. Hurt. Maybe even betrayal. Because if I were the kind of alpha who preyed on vulnerable she-wolves, you would already know it. Your wolf would know it. The pack would know it. Maybe my wolf isn't as smart as you think. Maybe I'm exactly as naive as everyone says I am. You're not naive, Raven. You're scared. There's a difference. He moved closer, but stopped just out of reach when I took a step back. I understand why Marcus's story would upset you. Hell, if I were in your position, I'd probably have doubts too. But ask yourself this. In all the time you've spent with Silver Moon, have you seen any evidence that I mistreat the wolves under my protection? I thought about Diana from IT, who spoke up fearlessly in meetings. About the female wolves who held leadership positions throughout the company. About how Victor and the other pack members respected rather than feared their alpha. That doesn't mean... It means everything, Dante interrupted. Leadership isn't about how you treat those who can fight back, Raven. It's about how you treat those who can't. The vulnerable, the lost, the broken. I've built my pack on the principle that every wolf has value, regardless of their past or their perceived weaknesses. Then why are you with me? The question tore from my throat like a confession. Why would someone like you want someone like me? Someone like you? His voice was incredulous. Raven, do you have any idea what I see when I look at you? A way to hurt Marcus. A weapon against Crimson Fong. I see a she-wolf who walked away from everything she knew rather than accept being undervalued. I see someone who rebuilt her life from scratch and excelled at everything she put her mind to. I see strength, intelligence, courage, and a heart big enough to forgive even those who've hurt her. He took another step closer. I see my equal, my match, my future Luna, if she'll have me. The words hit me like lightning, shorting out every doubt and fear Marcus had planted in my mind. Future Luna. He was talking about forever, about building something real together. Dante? I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But I also know that what I feel for you has nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with the fact that you make me want to be a better alpha, a better man. I wanted to believe him. Goddess, how badly I wanted to believe him. But the poison of doubt, once introduced, is hard to purge. I need time, I whispered. I need to think. Something died in his silver eyes, but he nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me at the door. Raven? For what it's worth, Miranda's death haunts me every day. Not because I caused it, but because I couldn't prevent it. I couldn't save her from the damage Connor had done. I won't make that mistake again. The drive home was a blur of tears and confusion. My apartment felt like a sanctuary and a prison all at once, safe from the outside world, but trapped with my own spiraling thoughts. I spent the day researching everything I could find about the Riverside incident. News articles, PAC records, even social media posts from 3 years ago. The story Dante had told me checked out. Miranda had indeed been cast out by her mate before joining Silver Moon. The circumstances of her death were consistent with suicide, and there were no allegations of impropriety between her and Dante. But facts and feelings are different things, and my heart was still a battlefield between love and fear. That evening, as I sat on my couch with takeout, I couldn't bring myself to eat. My phone rang. The caller ID showed my mother's number. Hello, Mom. Raven, sweetheart, I saw the news. Are you all right? The concern in her voice almost broke me. I'm fine. Just dealing with some pack drama. Is it true? About you and Alpha Steel? I closed my eyes. It's complicated. Oh, honey, your father and I were worried about you. Steel has a reputation for being ruthless. And with your history with the Blackthorn boy. You think I'm making a mistake too. I think you're hurting and possibly making decisions from that hurt rather than from strength. That rarely ends well. Her words, gentle but honest, cut deeper than Marcus's accusations or Bethany's poison. Because they came from love, not malice. I don't know what to do, Mom. I don't know who to trust anymore. Then trust yourself, sweetheart. Your instincts, your heart, your own judgment. What does your wolf tell you about Alpha Steel? I considered the question seriously. When I was with Dante, Midnight was calm, content, even protective of him. She'd never shown fear or unease in his presence. She likes him, I admitted. She trusts him. And what does your heart tell you? That I'm falling in love with him. But I'm terrified I'm making the same mistake I made with Marcus, seeing what I want to see instead of what's really there. Love always involves risk, Raven. The question is whether the person is worth that risk. After I hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my apartment, turning my mother's words over in my mind. Was Dante worth the risk? Was I strong enough to trust my own judgment after being so wrong about Marcus? The answer, when it came, wasn't the dramatic revelation I'd been expecting. It was quiet, simple, and absolutely certain. Yes, he was worth the risk. And I was strong enough to take it. Chapter 8. The Grand Gesture. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in days. The doubts were still there, lurking at the edges of my mind like shadows, but they no longer controlled me. I'd made my choice, and now I needed to act on it. I arrived at Steel Securities with a plan. Not just to apologize to Dante, but to prove that I was done letting fear dictate my decisions. I was going to fight for what we had, the same way he'd fought for me. Patricia looked surprised to see me. Good morning, dear. Mr. Steele is in meetings all morning, but I can. Actually, I need your help with something, I interrupted. Something important. An hour later, I was standing in the Silver Moon Pack's private conference room, facing 20 of the most powerful wolves in the region. Dante sat at the head of the table, his expression carefully neutral, but I could see the questions in his silver eyes. I've called this meeting, I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart, because I have something to say about the recent allegations regarding Alpha Steel and myself. Victor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Raven, this isn't necessary. Yes, it is. I looked around the table, meeting each wolf's gaze in turn. Some of you may have heard rumors about my relationship with your Alpha, about my motivations for joining Silver Moon, about whether I can be trusted with pack secrets, about whether I'm here for the right reasons. The tension in the room was palpable. These wolves had accepted me, but the recent scandal had shaken their confidence. The truth is, I came to Silver Moon for revenge. I continued. I wanted to hurt my ex-mate the way he'd hurt me. I thought getting close to Alpha Steel would be the perfect way to do that. I heard several sharp intakes of breath. Dante's expression remained carefully blank, but his knuckles were white where his hands gripped the conference table. But somewhere along the way, revenge stopped being my motivation. This pack, this job, this Alpha, I looked directly at Dante, became something real, something worth fighting for. The photographs, someone began, were taken without our knowledge or consent, I said firmly. They were released by wolves who want to see the Silver Moon weakened, who can't stand the idea that I chose you over them. They want to create doubt, division, mistrust. And for a brief moment, they succeeded. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what came next. Yesterday, I allowed those doubts to poison my thoughts. I questioned Alpha Steel's motives, his character, his feelings for me. I let fear make me cruel to someone who has shown me nothing but respect and kindness. Dante's eyes were burning now, fixed on my face with an intensity that made my wolf whine with longing. I'm here to publicly apologize for that doubt, and to make something crystal clear to anyone who might be listening. I straightened my shoulders, channeling every ounce of authority I possessed. I am Raven Nightshade, Silver Moon's marketing director, and I stand with this pack. I stand with this Alpha. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with me directly. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Cole, the pack's beta, began to clap. Diana from IT joined in, then Victor, then the rest of the pack until the entire room was applauding. Well said, Cole called out. Any wolf who stands with Silver Moon stands with us. Here, here, Diana added. Family protects family. As the meeting broke up and pack members filed out, Dante remained seated, his eyes never leaving my face. When we were finally alone, he stood slowly and walked around the table to where I stood. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen, he said quietly, or the most foolish. Maybe both. He reached up to cup my face in his hands, his touch gentle despite the power I could feel thrumming through him. Why? He asked. Why put yourself on the line like that? Because you were right yesterday. About what you see when you look at me, about what we could build together. I was letting other people's poison convince me to throw away the best thing that's ever happened to me. And if I hurt you, if Marcus is right, and I am just using you, I smiled, covering his hands with mine. Then I'll deal with that when it happens. But I won't let fear of what might destroy what is. He kissed me then, deep and desperate and full of relief. When we finally broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. I love you, he said against my lips. I should have said it sooner, but I love you, Raven Nightshade. I love you too, I whispered back. And I'm sorry I doubted that. But even as we held each other, I caught sight of movement outside the conference room windows. A familiar figure in the parking lot below, photographing the building with a telephoto lens. Dante, I said, pulling back to look at him. We're being watched. He followed my gaze, and his expression darkened. Journalist. Worse. That's Jake Morrison, Marcus's cousin. He's been posting on social media about Silver Moon, trying to stir up anti-pack sentiment. Dante's eyes flashed silver, his alpha nature rising to the surface. Not anymore. Before I could stop him, he was out of the conference room and heading for the elevators. I ran after him, my heels clicking frantically on the polished floor. Dante, wait. Don't do anything you'll regret. The only thing I'll regret, he said as the elevator doors closed behind us, is letting him continue to harass what's mine. We reached the parking lot just as Jake was climbing into his car. Dante moved with inhuman speed, reaching the vehicle before Jake could start the engine. I watched through the car window as Dante said something that made Jake's face go white with terror. Whatever threat Dante issued, it was effective. Jake deleted the photos from his camera right there, handed over his memory cards, and drove away with the speed of someone who never wanted to see Silver Moon territory again. What did you say to him? I asked as Dante walked back to me. That Silver Moon wolves protect their own, and that the next time he pointed a camera at you, he'd find out exactly how protective we can be. The casual menace in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it sent heat racing through my veins. This was my alpha, defending his territory, and his mate with the focused intensity that made him so dangerous. So, I said, stepping closer to him. Your mate? His hand settled on my waist, pulling me against him. If you'll have me. I know it's fast, I know there are complications, but... Yes. Yes. Yes, I'll have you. Complications and all. The smile that spread across his face was pure joy, and I felt something settle into place in my chest. This was right. This was real. This was worth every risk I'd taken to get here. There's just one thing, I said, suddenly nervous. What? If we're going to do this, if we're going to be mates, then I need to know you trust me completely. No holding back, no protecting me from difficult truths. I need to be your partner in everything. Something flickered in his eyes, and for a moment, I thought he might refuse. Then he nodded slowly. Everything. I promise. As we walked back into the building together, his arm around my waist and his mark burning warmly on my neck where he'd bitten me during our kiss, I felt like I was finally where I belonged. But in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered that Marcus wasn't the type to give up easily, and that the real battle for our future was just beginning. Chapter 9. The Final Stand. 3 weeks had passed since I declared my loyalty to Silver Moon, and life had settled into a rhythm that felt almost too good to be true. My marketing campaigns were exceeding all expectations. The pack had fully accepted me as Dante's mate, and our relationship had deepened into something that felt unshakable. Which should have been my first warning that Marcus was planning something devastating. I was working late on Friday evening, finalizing a presentation for Monday's board meeting, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Hello. Raven. The voice was strained, desperate. It's Elena. Elena Cross, Bethany's sister. I straightened in my chair. Elena had always been the quieter Cross sister, the one who stayed out of pack politics and drama. What could she possibly want with me? Elena? How did you get this number? I stole it from Bethany's phone. Raven, I need to warn you. Marcus is, the line crackled with static. Planning something terrible. Tonight. My blood chilled. What kind of something? A challenge. He's going to issue a formal alpha challenge to Dante Steele for the right to claim you as his mate. The phone slipped from my suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering to my desk. An alpha challenge was an ancient werewolf ritual, a fight to the death between two alphas over territory, resources, or, in this case, a mate. It was legal under supernatural law, but brutal and final. I grabbed the phone back. Elena, are you sure? He's gathering allies, calling in favors. He plans to issue the challenge publicly at the Moonrise Club tonight. Raven, if Dante accepts. One of them dies. I finished, my voice barely a whisper. Marcus has been training with a former military contractor, someone who specializes in taking down supernatural targets. He's not the same wolf you used to know. He's become something darker, more dangerous. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in horror. I had to warn Dante. I had to stop this madness before it started. But even as I reached for my office phone to call him, I realized with sick certainty that he would never back down from a formal challenge. His alpha pride, his protective instincts, his love for me, they would all demand he accept. Unless I wasn't there to be fought over. The thought hit me like lightning. If I disappeared, if I left the territory entirely, then the challenge would be meaningless. Marcus couldn't claim a mate who wasn't present to be claimed. I was grabbing my purse and heading for the door when Dante appeared in my office doorway. Going somewhere? He asked, but his casual tone belied the tension in his shoulders and the way his silver eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. Dante, we need to. I know about the challenge, he said quietly, stepping into my office and closing the door behind him. Cole intercepted some communications between Marcus and his allies. He's planning to issue it tonight. Then we have to stop him. You can't accept. I can't refuse. His voice was gentle but implacable. If I backed down from a formal challenge, especially one over my mate, it would be seen as weakness. Silver Moon's enemies would smell blood in the water. I don't care about pack politics. I snapped, my fear making me angry. I care about keeping you alive. He crossed to me in 2 quick strides, pulling me into his arms. Hey, look at me. I met his gaze reluctantly, seeing the calm certainty there that both reassured and terrified me. I've been an alpha for 5 years, Raven. I didn't get this position by losing fights. Marcus is younger, maybe slightly faster, but he's also desperate and emotional. That makes him predictable. Elena said he's been training with some military contractor. Elena called you? His eyes sharpened. When? Just now. She warned me about tonight and said Marcus has become something darker. Dante was quiet for a moment, processing this information. That changes things. If he's had professional training. Please, I whispered, gripping his shirt. Please don't do this. We can leave, go somewhere far away where pack law doesn't matter. And leave Silver Moon without an alpha? Leave the wolves who depend on me vulnerable to whatever retaliation the Blackthorns would dish out. He shook his head. I won't abandon my pack, Raven. Not even for you. The words stung, but I understood them. This was who Dante was, a leader who put his pack's needs above his own desires. It was one of the reasons I loved him, even as it broke my heart. Then I'm going with you tonight. Absolutely not. You can't stop me. If this challenge is about me, then I have a right to be there. Raven. No arguments. I won't let you face this alone. The Moonrise Club was packed by the time we arrived. Word of the challenge had spread through the supernatural community like wildfire, and representatives from every major pack, coven, and vampire house in the region had gathered to witness what would either be a quick dominance display or a fight to the death. The club's main floor had been cleared, creating a large circle surrounded by spectators. Ancient supernatural law governed challenges like this. No weapons, no interference, no mercy. Just 2 alphas, their wolves, and the primal need to prove dominance. Marcus was already there, standing in the center of the circle, with Bethany clinging to his arm. He'd changed since I'd last seen him, bulked up with new muscle, his eyes harder and colder than I remembered. When he spotted Dante and me entering together, his face twisted with rage and something that looked almost like madness. Dante Steele. Marcus's voice carried clearly through the suddenly quiet club. Marcus Blackthorn, future alpha of Crimson Fong Pack, formally challenge you for the right to claim Raven Nightshade as my mate. The crowd murmured with excitement and anticipation. Challenges were rare in the modern world, relics of a more brutal time that most packs had moved beyond. Dante stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate silence. I accept your challenge, Marcus Blackthorn. Let it be witnessed and binding under the old laws. No. The word tore from my throat before I could stop it. Both alphas turned to look at me, along with every other pair of eyes in the room. I walked into the circle, my heart pounding but my voice steady. I reject this challenge. I am not a prize to be won or claimed. I have already chosen my mate freely, and no challenge can change that. Marcus snarled, his wolf pushing at the surface. You don't get to choose, Raven. You're mine by right of first bonding. Our connection was severed when you betrayed it. I shot back. I owe you nothing, Marcus. Not my loyalty, not my love, and certainly not my life. "The old laws are clear," called out a voice from the crowd. Elder Thorn, one of the most respected supernatural law keepers in the region, stepped forward. "A mate may reject a challenge fought in her name, rendering it void." Hope flared in my chest, but Marcus's expression only grew more twisted. "Then I change the terms," he snarled. "I challenge Dante Steele not for the right to claim his mate, but for his territory, his pack, and his life. For the insult he has done to Crimson Fong by stealing what was ours." This time it was Dante who moved before I could stop him. His hand shot out, gripping Marcus by the throat and lifting him off his feet with supernatural strength. "You want to play with the old laws?" Dante's voice was a growl that seemed to come from the depths of hell itself.
"Fine.
"But when I kill you, boy, it won't be quick." He released Marcus, who stumbled backward, and the two alphas began to circle each other like the predators they were. The crowd pressed closer, bloodlust filling the air with an almost tangible tension. What followed was brutal, primal, and utterly terrifying to watch. These weren't men fighting. They were apex predators trying to destroy each other with fang and claw, and the kind of violence that left permanent scars on everyone who witnessed it. Marcus had indeed been trained. His movements were more controlled than I'd expected, his attacks calculated rather than emotional. But Dante had something Marcus lacked, the absolute certainty that he was fighting for something worth dying for. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Both alphas bled from multiple wounds, their shirts hanging in tatters, their eyes glowing with their wolves' fury. And then, just when it seemed like they were too evenly matched for either to gain the upper hand, Marcus made a mistake. He lunged for Dante's throat, putting everything he had into one final, desperate attack. Dante sidestepped at the last second, caught Marcus in midair, and drove him down onto the unforgiving floor with enough force to crack the concrete. Marcus lay still, his neck bent at an unnatural angle, his eyes vacant and staring at nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Elder Thorn stepped forward, checking Marcus's pulse before standing and addressing the crowd. "The challenge is concluded. Marcus Blackthorn is dead. Dante Steele remains Alpha of Silver Moon Pack by right of combat." I ran to Dante, not caring about the blood or the crowd or anything except getting to his side. He caught me in his arms, holding me tightly against his chest as the adrenaline slowly faded from his system. "It's over," he murmured against my hair. "It's finally over." But even as relief flooded through me, I couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus's death was just the beginning of something larger. The look in Bethany's eyes as she stared at her mate's body wasn't grief. It was rage, pure and promising. This war between our packs was far from over. But whatever came next, Dante and I would face it together. Chapter 10: New Beginnings. 3 months later, I stood on the balcony of our new apartment, watching the sun set over the city skyline. The penthouse was Dante's idea, somewhere that belonged to both of us, away from the memories of everything that had happened. Somewhere we could build our future together without the ghosts of the past haunting every corner. The view was spectacular, but it was the man coming up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, that made everything perfect. "How was the pack meeting?" I asked, leaning back against Dante's chest. "Productive. The merger with the Northern Ridge Pack is moving forward smoothly. Alpha Shadowheart seems impressed with our business model." His lips found the mate mark on my neck, pressing a gentle kiss there that sent familiar shivers through me. "Victor thinks we'll have the contracts finalized within the month." The expansion had been my idea. Silver Moon was strong enough to absorb smaller packs who were struggling with territory disputes or financial difficulties. It was better than watching them disband or get absorbed by less benevolent alphas. And Bethany? I felt Dante's slight tension at the mention of Marcus's former mate. She'd disappeared after his death, along with several Crimson Fong wolves who blamed Silver Moon for their losses. There had been rumors of them forming a rogue pack, but nothing concrete. No new intelligence. But Cole has contacts keeping an eye on the situation. I turned in his arms, studying his face. The past 3 months had been good to us. The crisis had passed, our bond had deepened, and we'd found a rhythm that worked. But there were still moments when I caught him looking troubled, still nights when he'd wake from dreams he wouldn't describe. "You're worried about something," I said. It wasn't a question. "I'm always worried about something. It's part of being an alpha." "Dante." I gave him the look that meant I wouldn't be deflected by alpha stoicism. He sighed, his hands settling on my hips. "There's been chatter in the supernatural community. Questions about the challenge, about whether I had the right to kill Marcus over what was essentially a personal dispute." "It wasn't personal. He challenged you for your territory. After you rejected his original challenge. Some of the old-school alphas think I manipulated the situation to justify killing a rival." I felt anger flare in my chest. "That's ridiculous. Marcus changed the terms himself. I know that. You know that. But politics in our world isn't always about truth. It's about perception." He cupped my face in his hands. "I need you to know that if this comes back to bite us, if there are consequences, we'll face them together," I interrupted. "That's what mates do." The smile that spread across his face was soft and full of love. "Have I mentioned today that I'm crazy about you?" "Only about 6 times. But I don't mind hearing it again." He was leaning down to kiss me when his phone buzzed with an emergency alert. We both froze. Emergency calls to the Alpha line meant serious pack business. "Steele," he answered, his voice immediately shifting to Alpha mode. I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but I watched Dante's expression grow increasingly grim. When? A pause. "How many?" Another pause. "We'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and turned to me, his face serious. "There's been an incident at the Riverside territory. Someone's been killing lone wolves, 3 bodies found in the past week." My stomach dropped. Riverside was where Miranda had died, where her pack had disbanded after her alpha's disgrace. It was neutral territory now, used mostly by packless wolves seeking temporary sanctuary. Do they think it's connected to us somehow? I don't know. But the Supernatural Council is requesting Silver Moon's assistance with the investigation, given our recent prominence in pack politics. Within the hour, we were driving through the wilderness preserve that bordered the old Riverside territory. Dante had wanted me to stay behind, but I'd convinced him that my marketing background gave me insights into pattern recognition that might be useful. The truth was, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was connected to Marcus's death somehow. Call it intuition or paranoia, but 3 months of relative peace had been too good to last. The crime scene was brutal. 3 wolves, all killed with the kind of precision that spoke of professional training rather than random violence. The local sheriff, a werbear named Thompson, walked us through what they'd found. "No defensive wounds," he explained, gesturing to the latest victim. "Whoever did this, the wolves trusted them enough to get close. Or they were taken by surprise by someone with military-level skills." Dante and I exchanged glances. Military-level skills. Like the contractor Marcus had been training with. "Any witnesses?" Dante asked. "One. A young she-wolf named Kara. She saw someone fleeing the scene of the second murder, but she was too scared to get a good look. Said it was a woman, though. Medium height, blonde hair." My blood turned to ice. "Where is she now?" "This witness?" "Safe house about 10 miles from here. Council's got her under protection until we catch whoever's doing this." The safe house turned out to be a modest cabin deep in the woods, guarded by 2 council enforcers. Kara was young, maybe 19, with the kind of nervous energy that came from being packless and constantly on edge. "I didn't see much," she said, wrapping her arms around herself as she recounted the story. "I was foraging for berries when I heard this awful sound, like someone crying in pain. When I got closer, I saw Jessica on the ground, already dead. And the person running away? It was definitely a woman. She moved wrong, though, like she was hurt or limping. And she smelled." Kara's face scrunched up in concentration. "Angry. And sad. Really, really sad." After we left the safe house, Dante and I drove in silence for several miles before either of us spoke. "It's her, isn't it?" I said finally. "Bethany." "Probably. The question is whether she's working alone, or if she's got backing from other Crimson Fang wolves." Either way, she's targeting lone wolves for a reason. She's building up to something bigger. Dante's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She's targeting wolves who can't fight back, who don't have pack protection. It's psychological warfare, making the supernatural community think Silver Moon can't even protect the weakest among us. Or she's practicing, getting better at killing before she comes after her real targets. Us, he said grimly. That night, back in our apartment, we implemented new security protocols. Silver Moon wolves would travel in pairs. I would have a bodyguard when Dante wasn't with me. And we'd hire additional security for pack territory and our business operations. It felt like we were under siege, and in many ways, we were. I was in the kitchen making tea when Dante appeared in the doorway, looking more serious than I'd seen him since the challenge. There's something I need to tell you, he said. Something I probably should have mentioned before, but with everything that's happened. What is it? The council has been discussing the future of pack leadership in this region. They think the challenge and its aftermath has destabilized things too much. They're talking about appointing a regional alpha to oversee all the smaller packs. I set down my mug carefully, and they want you to take the position. They've made an informal offer, yes. It would mean more responsibility, more visibility, but also more protection for Silver Moon and our allies. What did you tell them? That I'd discuss it with my mate before making any decisions. The gesture meant everything to me, that he saw me as his true partner, that he wouldn't make choices that affected our future without my input. It's a good opportunity, I said slowly. But it also makes us bigger targets. For people like Bethany, yes. But Raven, if we don't step up, if we don't take leadership when it's offered, someone else will. Someone who might not have the supernatural community's best interests at heart. I thought about the lone wolves being hunted, about the smaller packs struggling to survive, about the power vacuum that Marcus's death had created. Then we say yes, I said firmly. We take the position, and we use it to build something better. Something stronger. Dante's smile was fierce and proud. I was hoping you'd say that. As he pulled me into his arms, I felt the familiar thrill of facing the unknown together. We'd started this journey as broken people seeking revenge and healing. Now we were something more, partners, mates, leaders ready to shape the future of our world. Whatever Bethany and her allies threw at us, whatever challenges the council position would bring, whatever enemies emerged from the shadows, we'd meet them head-on. Together. Outside our windows, the full moon rose over the city, casting silver light across our new life. And for the first time since this all began, I felt truly ready for whatever came next. The girl who'd walked into that storage room and found her world shattered was gone. In her place stood Luna, an alpha's mate, a woman who'd learned that sometimes the best revenge is building something so beautiful that your enemies can only watch and envy. Marcus had wanted to break me. Instead, he'd forged me into something unbreakable. And that, I thought as Dante's lips found mine under the moonlight, was a kind of justice all its own. The end. Thank you for following Raven and Dante's journey from revenge to redemption to love. Their story continues in the supernatural community they're helping to build, but this chapter of their romance has reached its satisfying conclusion.